In this video, we will show you how to replace your transmission speed sensor on this Nissan Altima. This will be mounted directly to the front of your transmission. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. Make your way over to the negative battery terminal with a 10mm wrench. We'll loosen this mounting nut just enough that we can remove the terminal end from the battery. A little wiggle there. Set it aside so it's making no contact. Once you've done that, we'll continue on to removing this plastic panel. You'll find that it has several push clips that hold it down in position. To remove any of your push clips, use a small prying device and lift out the center to unlock it. Now we can continue on to removing this plastic intake duct. You'll find that it's held in place with two 10mm headed bolts. Now let's have a look down inside this area. You're going to be able to see your starter. Along the driver's side of that starter is where you're going to find that you have two wires that mount to it. They're protected by rubber covers. We'll carefully pry the rubber covers out of the way and then remove each one of the wires. They're held in place with mounting nuts. You can use your hand to pull this out of place or the pry bar, whatever's best for you. I don't have to pull up too much further than that. I can see the nut down underneath this area. It's a little hard to see, but it's not too hard to access. Let's have a close look at the new starter so you can see exactly what's going on. I removed the rubber boot from this area here, which would expose the mounting nut. Remove that, remove the locking washer, assuming it has one, and then remove the wiring from the area. Quick inspection, and then do the same exact thing to the smaller wire. This one has a rubber boot over it as well. Go ahead and remove the nut and washer and wiring. We'll remove that mounting nut. Take hold of the wiring, slip it out of position. Now that we have the nut off of there, take hold of the wiring, pull it right off of the back side of the starter there. Just a quick inspection of the wiring. We'll set that aside and continue on to the next wire. Slide the boot out of the way. We can remove that mounting nut and pull that out of the way as well. We'll use our 8mm for this. Give that wire a wiggle, we'll slide it out of place. Quick inspection. Once we have the starter out of here, we'll continue on with cleaning up those wires. Now we can take hold of those wires, we'll just pull those up and out of the way, and we can have a look down in this area. We'll be looking for two 17mm headed mounting bolts. There's that one. That's a big one. That second mounting bolt is considerably shorter than the first. Now that we have the bolts out of there, we'll use a little bit of penetrant along where the starter and the engine meet. At this point, we'll have to break the starter free. To do that, you can use a hammer and punch. We'll give it a couple loving bonks to cause some vibration. Once it's separated, we'll pull it towards the driver's side to remove it. Starting to separate fairly well. Carefully use a pry bar in this area if needed. You could also use a screwdriver. Whatever you do, just be careful not to hurt yourself. With that separated, we'll carefully reach down and bring it right up and out through this area. There it is, friend. Now that we have the starter out of there, let's just take a quick look at the mounting point where the starter goes. We want to make sure we clean and inspect this. Now that we've done that, we can move along to our sensor. Take hold of the electrical connector. It has a locking tab. Squeeze it in. Once you have that disconnected, we'll just give it a quick inspection for corrosion, set it aside. Once you've done that, continue on to your 10mm headed mounting bolt. Go ahead and remove that. Give that mounting bolt a quick inspection, of course. We'll set it aside. Now we can just reach down in here. We'll take hold of the sensor, give it a little twist side to side. As you're twisting it side to side, once you feel as though it starts to pivot, typically you can take hold of it and start pulling it straight forward. There we are. Now that we have the sensor out of there, the next thing you want to do is pay attention down in the mounting area. We're looking to see if there's any pieces of plastic inside of the port. On this one in particular, I can tell that the sensor itself came apart. There's an outer shell that is common to separate. Just carefully reach in and tug it out. You may have to use pliers. There's that. Once you have the sensor out of the transmission, we'll continue on to cleaning the mounting hole. After a quick wipe, we'll give it an inspection and continue on to installing our brand new sensor. When you go to put in the sensor, it's a good idea to use some of your brand new transmission fluid. We'll do a light coating on that O-ring, then we can slide it into place. At this point, we're going to have to continue on by pressing it in. While pressing it in, you can also twist it to help it along. You want to make sure it's completely seated up against that transmission. Once that's seated, continue on with your 10mm headed mounting bolt. Start it in, snug it up. Right there's bottomed out. We'll just make sure that's snug. Once you've done that, continue on to torquing it to 89 inch-pounds. There we are. Now we can reconnect our electrical connector. Go ahead and press it in and listen for a click. We'll make sure we have the locking tab facing forward. There's a nice click from that. We'll double check to make sure it's completely secure. This looks good. Now we can get ready to install our starter. We'll take this and carefully slide it into position, aligning it with the transmission. Here we are. This can be a tight fit. Once you feel as though you have that bottomed out against the transmission, we'll continue on with our two mounting bolts. Now, as you remember, when we removed these bolts, the longer bolt was the upper mounting bolt. Go ahead and slide that in, start it in by hand. We are not going to tighten this bolt until we start in the other bolt as well. Start in the lower bolt. Now we can snug these up and then torque them to 43 foot-pounds. Now we'll torque these to 43 foot-pounds. There we are. We'll do the same to the other one. Once you have both of those mounting bolts torqued, we're going to continue on back to our wiring. You remember we had a large wire and a small wire. On the end of them you have the connectors that go up against the starter. We'll use a piece of fine sandpaper and sand down both ends of this. We want to make sure we have great contact. Once we have this one clean, we'll do the same thing to the other one. Make sure there's no corrosion on that. So it's a little bit harder to see. Once you feel as though you have both of these cleaned up, we'll continue on with installing them onto the starter. Let's take that wire and put it on the starter. We'll start with a smaller wire. Once you have the wire on there, continue on with your locking washer, and then you can install the nut. Once you have that nut on there, just go ahead and bottom it out. We'll snug it up, but keep in mind this is a very small stud and you don't want to break anything. Right there is bottomed out. We'll just make sure that's snug. Continue on to the rubber boot. You just want to cover that. A quick inspection, we'll move along and do the same thing to the upper wire. slide it on. Locking washer, and then start that nut on there. After that, snug it up. Get this locking washer on there. Mounting nut. Right there is bottomed out. Just make sure that's snug. Let's just double check to make sure we have both of our boots in place. Once we've done that, we'll continue on to putting on our plastic intake. To install the plastic intake, we'll bring it right up into this area and align our mounting bolt holes. Snug them up. Put on our trim piece. Get this in position. Align all of the push pin holes and put them in. When you install them, you want to make sure you have them in the unlocked position. So the center is in the pulled up position. Lock it in by pressing the center down. Do the same to all. Reconnect your negative battery terminal. We'll slide this on here. Once you've done that, we'll use our 10mm on this side and tighten the mounting nut. Double check to make sure that's completely secure. Okay friend, we finished installing our transmission speed sensor. At this point, you can hop inside the passenger compartment, start up the vehicle, take it for a short road test, make sure you don't have a running condition, and no check engine light. Aside from that, thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.